So we meet again. This is my 38th World Vet Championship. It is my 26th Edison Dye Lifetime Achievement Award that was started by Tom White. This race is one of the smartest ideas anybody in the sport of motocross has ever done. Vet riders, over 30, over 40, over 50, and now over 60, over 70, and even an over 80, the people who support the sport the most. They have the money to buy expensive motorcycles. They have the wherewithal to come and go. Their wives don't care where they are, and so they can come and race, and they got kids who can unload the bike for them. You know, you can't have a World Vet Championship without talking about Tom White. The late Tom White sponsored the race, invented the race, supported the race, announced the race, raced the race, even won the 40 class at one point in time. He is responsible for all the vet races that you see around the world because he made this race super important. His memory lives on in that this race exists for older riders to compete against each other and have fun. So all you people who made it to the museum to see this video and to meet Jeremy McGrath, see all the people who came to support him and the people who were important in his career, thank you for coming. Enjoy yourself. This is a moment in history. I'm glad you're here.
Jeremy McGrath brings the crowd to their feet.
Jeremy McGrath has won a record 10th victory in this 1993 season.
The guy just loves to win. He's here to win. He doesn't really ever want to rest and ride out his cushion.
There's our number one, Jeremy McGrath.
We might see one more knack-knack before Jeremy takes his summer vacation. There it is.
Fire to bar. McGrath takes the advantage in the triple Morocco. Checkers for Jeremy.
Before I ever raced BMX, this was me right here. 10 years old, 9 years old. My first 80 was a 79 RM80. I have it here in the hallway as a reminder of where all this thing started out. I didn't start racing until I was 14. For these days and the standards of today's racing is kind of late, really. I think it just worked for me, and I think you have a window, right? So you have a 10-year or 12-year window of pushing your body to the limit like that and being a professional and being on tour and just the stress and strain that it takes to do it. And I'm kind of lucky that I started late because then I was able to race until I was 30, 31.
I first met Jeremy McGrath when he was an intermediate. He was racing at the same races that I was racing. He was really fast, so I saw him all the time and I was impressed with him.
He was a friend of Jimmy Button's. They would interact and come by our trailer. And I got to meet Jeremy, and he was a really down-to-earth, nice guy.
Knew Jeremy from racing, so I had met him at the track and just from around the pits. When I really started talking to him and everything was when we were talking to him about riding for Chaparral.
I did race BMX. I started BMX when I was probably 9 years old and ended up racing BMX until I was about 14. A friend of mine that raced BMX was racing motocross too. You know, I was bugging my dad about getting me a new bike and getting me a bike to race, dirt bikes to go try it out and all this. And I had my old 80, but you know, when I was 14, it was time for a new bike. And so I didn't start racing until June of 86. On my birthday in November of 85, I got a brand new YZ80. That was the start. That's when it happened. June of 86, I went to Paris Raceway, raced my first motocross race, won the beginner class, and then back then they had split starts, so you had 2 gates. And the second moto, I was just so hyped up, I forgot to even wait for the first gate to go down. So I took off with the novices and finished 3rd place in the novice class. That was it. I raced 1 moto as a beginner, and then I was 80 novice, pretty much novice for the rest of the year, and that was the start.
I think he rode Yamahas, and he was a local guy, and in that era, you went to Paris Raceway. I mean, for Jeremy, that was right by his house, so he was like a Paris local and was really fast there. So like you could see this kid improving. But I mean, truthfully, at that point, I don't think anybody, you know, would think he would go on to do what he did, for sure.
You know, look, I knew I was good, but did I think I would turn it into holy shit? No, I didn't. It's crazy. I mean, this career is still, it makes me laugh, you know? I wasn't a kid that grew up riding dirt bikes all the time. California, it's hard pack out here. You don't know anything about ruts, mud, any of that stuff. I mean, when it's muddy, we just put our bikes away and we don't ride. BMX really gave me that jump start I needed for jumping and for Supercross, and I knew that I'd be good at Supercross if I could just get to the stadiums one day. So basically, I just, you know, I've said this many times that I just did whatever it took to get a chance to race Supercross. I proved myself right. Even as a privateer, I finished 2nd at Seattle Supercross one year. In 89, I was like, you know, I was a nobody. 89, I just started racing in 86, so it was like, I mean, I was A class, but I was barely A class.
So when he turned pro, he was riding the 125 West Supercross class on a Kawasaki, and he did really well. And so I said, hey, why don't you come and ride bikes for MXA? We'll work out all the details, everything will be fine. So he got an Axo clothing deal, appeared on the cover a couple of times, he appeared inside a bunch of times, and we really liked him, and he was always honest, he was always straightforward, he knew how to ride a motorcycle to make it look good.
Like, I really didn't know if he was that good as he was in 91. I'm being straight honest. Yeah, he was fast, but like Steve Lamson was fast, and this guy's fast, and that guy's fast. But like when we went to the first race, Jeremy was just so confident about everything on the track. You know, on a 125, anybody would tell you back then, can you do the triple? And he would like grease it. We're talking like in the first practice. Everybody comes back, they're like, dude, Jeremy did the triple. And literally, Steve Lamson wasn't doing the triple. And Jeremy would help him. Follow me. After you do it one time, you're gonna be fine. At that point, and in his career, he wasn't, you know, like the dude yet, but he was really kind and giving to his teammate. And I have guys sometimes that, you know, they are teammates, they're like, screw that guy, I'm not helping him. To see that was really cool.
Mitch was a tough guy. And I rode for Mitch as an amateur. You know, I didn't really feel like I was getting the attention that I needed, and I went down to Mitch's office, and my dad made me do this at 16. Had my license, but I was like, you know, big man now, I was driving. I went in Mitch's office and I quit riding for pro circuit, but it was one of the scariest days of my whole career. Mitch sat there and told me, he said, who do you think you are, Rick Johnson? And I was nobody, trust me. I was a kid that lived down in Menifee and no one knew where the hell that was. So I didn't even know I had a career at that point. I mean, I was racing amateurs at the time. I mean, it wasn't 6 months before that, I was working at Vaughn's, bagging groceries. So Mitch told me that if I left pro circuit, I would never ride for pro circuit again in that conversation. And I left his office crying. What am I doing to myself here? I wasn't trying to stick up to Mitch, but I was just trying to be honest. It really changed the trajectory of what was going on for me in Supercross, especially. I mean, with this bike here in 90, I won my first Supercross in 90. You know, it wasn't 6-7 months later that Factory Honda was calling. I was back riding for Mitch again. Those situations really stand out in my mind because those are the ones that, you know, people said I couldn't, and I ended up doing it. So those make me proud, and Mitch and I are great friends today, and Pro Circuit's an amazing company, and you know, I think he respects me a lot more for that. I think we've had a lot of fun in the pits. I like to keep it light. I don't like to be all business. I don't like to hate my competitors. You know, I would rather embarrass a guy on the track than talk some smack in the pits. You know, I like to say there's a fine line between confidence and arrogance, and I walk the line, trust me, I walk the line on confidence for sure. I was not afraid to make it known, you know, be cocky and stuff like that, but that was sort of like a strategy, you know? I
get something in my head and I'm a little bit square about it. No, we're gonna do it this way. I had it set up to everybody's helmet would just have their name on it. Troy would paint it on there and they're gonna look identical. I don't want nothing different. Jeremy's like, dude, like I want showtime, and I'm like, oh no, here we go. Here goes this showtime thing. He was never scared of a stadium. Going into it, you know, some guys are like, dude, there's a lot of people in there. He thrives on it. He truly, really enjoyed the lights and the fans and the yelling and stuff like that. And he was really, really amazing about wanting to sign autographs and staying to sign autographs.
When people would come by, you kind of got the vibe of who was cool. You know, we had Randy Lawrence was Jeremy's mechanic, Jimmy Button, and then Jeremy. And during the whole time, you would look in there, if you didn't know anybody and you just walked up, just on the actions and how well they acted, you would think, you know, Randy Lawrence was Mr. Cool, Jimmy Button was second, and then this guy Jeremy, he was kind of like, he was the guy that just rode the motorcycle. And it was totally, you know, opposite of what it really was. Jeremy was just very grounded, very down to earth, got the job done.
It was awesome. I mean, he was just a normal guy. You know, a lot of the guys that thought they were the champions or thought they were a top guy, they would have these huge egos, and Jeremy had, you know, his ego in check and just a normal kid. It was honestly a breath of fresh air. It was really fun to work with, and you know, you weren't walking on eggshells or anything. He was just a really down-to-earth, good guy. He was the guy that brought our sport, Supercross, motocross, to the mainstream, you know, on a winning streak, and what he was doing, you know, off the bike was winning the hearts of people too. And work with somebody like that was pretty neat, you know, and see the people that he touched and the people that wanted to meet him and get his autograph. It was huge. To me, it was an eye-opener to work with somebody so popular. On the track, once he put the helmet on, the confidence came out, you know. And it's the same when he's golfing or anything competitive, you know, he just a lot of confidence and the way that he approaches it. And would win so many races a year. It was just amazing how he would do it, but he would just get the start and run the first half of the race just, you know, as fast as he could and always break away. And I mean, he just had his way of doing things and it worked really good.
He was just a very grounded, down-to-earth guy that didn't let ego get in his way. Some of the other riders we had, his family was excellent to deal with. Jack and Ann were great people. He liked to have fun, no doubt about that. We all do. When he came to the races, he came to the races to win. I could never understand how, as a former racer, I hated everybody that I raced against. They were my enemy. And yet everybody wanted to be Jeremy's friend who he raced with, which I don't want to be your friend. You're the guy I'm trying to beat.
He was the one that kind of brought our sport into the mainstream because of how he was off the track and on the track. I mean, he won off the track and then he was a personable guy off the track. And I mean, I think people could relate to that, you know, because he was more of a normal person. Sponsors loved it, the fans loved it, and he won a lot of races. So, I mean, he did have the whole package. It was something that a lot of riders don't have. And, you know, a lot of them have the skill on the track, but, you know, they just don't have that personality to kind of reach the fan. I mean, the fans love him because of their riding ability, but Jeremy McGrath, they loved him because of his personality also. I mean, autograph signings, I mean, the kids were just flocking, you know, it was pretty cool. And even at the track, he's got a race and he's there signing autographs for kids. And there was never a time that he never really pushed anyone off. You know, he was always there for the fan. And it was honestly a breath of fresh air to work with somebody like that.
I think he's been really good, and even to this day, you know, by his role with Kawasaki and going to dealer shows, the guy that owns the dealership remembers going to Supercrosses and watching Jeremy, and they're like, dude, that's Jeremy McGrath. Like, it's pretty sick.
Within regards of being accommodating to the media and just trying to stay humble along my career, I think I'm a sports fan too. I see a lot of the athletes. I see a lot of guys that I like, and I see a lot of athletes that I end up not liking because they get the don't you know who I think I am kind of thing, and it's just really weird to me. I think, you know, I have to thank my parents for whatever they did in raising me. It's just they built in some humility. Look, when I put my helmet on, I'm a different person. I'm riding my dirt bike. When I'm at the track and I don't have my helmet on, I'm the same as everybody else. Yeah, I can ride my dirt bike, but does that make me any different? Not really, it doesn't. So I just try to remember that, you know, and I think in certain instances throughout my career, you know, I just thought of, you know, like, why would I ever want to blow off anyone? Let's just have fun with this thing. If I take care of the fans, take care of the media, take care of whoever needs something from me, I don't walk away from that situation having to think about it like, man, I need to get back to that. I need to get back to that. I'm just seeing that a lot with athletes, and I love sports, all sports. And I just know the athletes that I like and who I would want to emulate. I figured that it was always best, if I wanted to be a popular racer, I needed to be relatable. I want to be exactly like the fan in the stands. When I'm in the stands watching 250 Supercross and I'm not in it, I'm cheering loud just like everybody else. And I think, you know, one of the ways to just keep my head clear through my career was just, let's just handle it. Do it now, hang out, take care of the business, the riding, of course, but I like that part. I like all aspects of it, you know, and I think when I put my helmet on, it's different. But when my helmet's off, I like to be the same as everybody else.
When Jeremy moved on to the 250 class, and like we're talking about like right off the bat, he won a championship and all that. Pretty soon he's like this guy. Like now you really start seeing that, dude, he's a unique one. Like that's amazing. He was really truthfully the same guy. I remember Bones one time had mentioned that, and he goes, oh, I hope he doesn't get a big head. Dude, he would be the guy that would come in our trailer and just sit down and talk to all the guys. And Bones he's really cool.
So yeah, I mean, I can't look back and go, yeah, I was too serious of a time. We were kids growing up, and we were trying to do the best we could, be dedicated, be disciplined, but also have some fun. People know that I wasn't afraid to have some fun. There's a famous saying in racing that you're only as good as your last race. I mean, it really is true, especially for a guy that's not winning races. I mean, I found little nuggets along the way to motivate me. You know, different circumstances that happened throughout my career where people said I couldn't, and I was going to prove them wrong. You know, I think one of the things that I have is my mental ability to be strong and just believe and be confident when things weren't looking so bright at certain times, you know? When you win a lot, I just kind of tried to always consider myself to be the underdog. I took one race at a time. I never tried to think long term. I just said, look, let's just win races. When I can win races, the points come, the championships come, and everything else comes with it. So let's worry about today, and that's Saturday night and let's just try to do the best we can today and try to win. And that kind of thing worked for me. A few times in my career, let's just say 96 in the outdoor series, I won like 7 of the first 8 nationals, just killing it. I won 14 Supercrosses that year. I mean, unstoppable that year pretty much. So being overconfident that year a little bit caught me. I injured myself at Millville. I tried to jump a jump that was not even possible, but for some reason I thought I could do it, and came up short and just wrecked my ankle completely. Cost me the outdoor title, really, it just did. That was the year AMA won the title. We were tied in points going into the last moto at Steel City, and man, I just wasn't up to the task. But you know, I don't look at that as like, hey, I got beat. I mean, mentally I let myself down. Got a little too overconfident, and life has a way of smacking you down when you get too overconfident. So it happened, and I'm here to say that, you know, you got to be careful of that. And I just tried to, like I said, I just tried to always think of myself as the underdog. It was just a way to motivate myself.
Like I said, I mean, anybody that said, oh, I knew that guy had been that good, I can't say that I had that vision of it. Like yeah, he was really good, but how good is really good? And then really good is sort of this plateau of guys, right? He was like on another level, and that's like that next step. How does a guy pop that next step? How do you do that? And then how do you keep winning? You know, there was a championship that was lost by that much. So you add that one and you got another championship. And there was a few DNFs in there, you know, like all those things. And you're like, dang, this could have been even a bigger thing. But
he was the most winning rider in Supercross history. And, you know, if he would have raced motocross, I think he would have won a lot of motocross races at the end of his career, because he had matured and figured out how to do it. And just, you know, he was just coming to the end of his career and he decided not to do motocross. I mean, that kept him racing for quite a few more years, you know, when you would think he would retire. But you know, he just was a great rider.
You're happy to see this guy have that kind of success, right? And he just kept hitting home runs. It just kept going, and we were lucky that we worked with Yamaha, so we got to keep product on his bike. So we got to work with him at Yamaha for a long time, and then he did the Suzuki thing, 97, back to Chaparral. And then we worked with him with that. It's kind of cool, because one of the things I always think of is we did Honda's engine program for him in like 05, 06, the 250. They asked us if we would do the 2-stroke, because they wanted to focus on the 4-stroke. We did it and we got it to run really good. Jeremy rode it at Phoenix and it was a split start, and he got the whole shot. And that's the last 2-stroke to ever whole shot an AMA main event, you know, like with 250s and 450s. So that was, Jeremy did it, did a big knack, and then that was it. And then I think we had a picture over there on the wall of it, but I kind of feel like, I'm like, God, that's awesome. That was him that got to whole shot the last time on a 2-stroke.
You know, look, my mark on the sport, yeah, people say, oh, you have 72 Supercross wins, it'll never be matched. But you know, my mark, I think, on the sport is I changed the riding style of the sport. And I think that was just due to my BMX background. But from my staying low on the, you know, on the racetrack, on the jumps, on the triples, became the Bubba scrub, right? So it inspired guys like James, it inspired guys like Chad Reed. I mean, Chad Reed, his style looks exactly how I used to race. So he was in Australia watching videos trying to be me. You know, my legacy is just how the sport evolved since I was in it and changed it, and since I've left. What I'm stoked about is the fans have always been so cool, and they keep telling it to their kids. And so like, I'm still having kids come up to me that are 10 years old. They never saw me race. They never even were close to the track. Maybe when they were a baby, but most of the time not. So that means their dads were inspired by me and just kind of pushing that story down the line. And you know, it's probably the same stories that I hear about Roger DeCoster, you know, from my dad and guys before my dad. It's just like, I didn't set out on this to have this career. I didn't set out to leave my mark like this. It was just something that happened. I think people can tell I still love my dirt bike and have a lot of passion for our sport. And I think that's why I've been able to work and just stay involved for such a long time. I love it. There's no doubt this was the right career for me.
3-4 weeks ago, he called about something, and every once in a while it just catches you and you're like, 72? Like, that's a hell of a lot. There's some pretty good company that aren't even close to that.
If Supercross if I didn't know about that, I'm sure I would have been a backhoe operator or something, ditch digger, whatever, something outdoor. I'm not sure I was made out for college, although I thought I might be going to college, but I'm more of an outdoors guy. So had there not been Supercross, and you know, I went to 1981 Super Bowl of Motocross at LA Coliseum and saw the 80s riding the halftime show, and I was like, this is where I need to be. And this was 6 years before I ever raced dirt bikes. It had this crazy impact in my mind that like, that's where I wanted to be. And you know, look, it's a 1 in a million chance that it works, and it worked.
I think he's the greatest motorcycle racer in American history, not because he won 72 Supercross races, although that's nothing to sneeze at, and not because he was a factory Honda rider who broke away from the team thing and formed his own teams and changed the face of the sport, but because Jeremy is really a nice guy. Never involved in any dirty riding tactics. He never retaliates if somebody does something to him. He simply goes out and goes faster. Plus, he was an MXA test rider.
I think that he had a lot to do with changing the industry, for bringing in outside sponsorships. You know, there was Mazda back in the era of No Fear, which No Fear had some connections to outside people. Unbelievable to believe how big Jeremy was then, and there was no social media. The era of, say, God, you know, Chad Reed, Ricky, Kevin Windham, those guys, there's a hell of a lot of them that grew up, and you know, remember we used to have VHS, you know, so they watched videos, reruns of Jeremy racing Supercross. There was one of our mechanics, little boy, and he was just hooked on Jeremy McGrath videos. And so then they did Steel Roots. See, that was a big deal. Like, that had never been done. So then, you know, he kind of hung it out and pushed outside the envelope a little bit, and all those things, now it's all been done. He was kind of right in the beginning of all those crazy things, you know, like, and was able to keep it straight and win, and like, even like I said, like right now, he's still in the industry and is respected and deserving.
Yeah, you know, I mean, look, I've stayed involved with stuff because I love it so much. I mean, I want to be involved. And then kind of racing some races that were for fun when I was back testing for Honda. I mean, it was cool. I was 27 years old, 28 years old, 30 years old. Then X Games comes along. Let's try step up. Let's go see if we can do that. It was kind of what I did as a kid, and we were always messing around, jumping big jumps anyways, with the movies Steel Roots back in the day, and then when Krusty came out and all that. I mean, we were living the lifestyle. From what most people saw, it was only really track riding. I enjoy all of it, right? So that's, the X Games came with the step up, got a gold there, tried to get gold several times, but finally got it done. Supermoto a couple times, got a bunch of medals for that. Supercross, got third, I think, in Supercross and X Games, which was cool, as I was like 32 years old. It was pretty sweet. And then went raced trucks, you know, but never really put my motorcycle aside. I mean, motorcycles for me is number one. It always has been, always will be. But to get to enjoy other forms of racing was really fun. Get a championship in short course truck racing in 18 was, after 8 years of trying, was a pretty cool highlight for me. But I've gotten to experience a lot of racing in them, and it's all really due to my dirt bike. So I'm very appreciative to that. I stay motivated because I love it. I love hosting the show Science of Supercross now, all the fun stuff we do with Kawasaki. I'm having a lot of fun. I don't look at this as work. If I was at home, what would I be doing? I need something to do, and as long as I can pick and choose when to do it, then I'm good to go. I'm proud of the awards that I've gotten. You know, a couple of Hall of Fames, which is something I never imagined. Pretty crazy. AMA Hall of Fame, of course. And, you know, awards are nice. I think it's like verification that you did all right, you know? A Lifetime Achievement Award, I mean, that's pretty awesome. I've given my life to this sport, contributed in every way I can to make it better and to improve it for the next generation that's racing. And I think I have done that. You know, it's gonna be an exciting weekend at Glen, Helen. I'm excited to get the award. I'm not just coming for the award, I'm coming to race. You know, there's a lot of legends that have received this award, and I'm proud to be part of it. It's strange to think back, but you know, I'm just one of the lucky ones. I got to win a lot in Supercross. Had an amazing career that I never imagined I would, so.
Congratulations on your 2022 Edison Dye Motocross Achievement Award.
You deserve it more than anyone that races, and
It's obviously lifetime achievement, and you're young, so like he's got a long way to go still. So I'm sure he'll get a lot more awards, but he's well deserving of this. And if you ever haven't met Jeremy, to just meet him is an honor. I would have to say that he's like one of the most humble, great people in our sport.
Big man Jeremy McGrath is sideways. We're off and running. Jeremy McGrath establishes the lead right away. And our leader is the six-time former champion and defending champ, Jeremy McGrath. McGrath really cutting a good lap time is just almost effortlessly. But Anaheim was his house. It still is. Pure excellence. Jeremy McGrath takes the checkered flag.
We are proud to announce that Jeremy will receive the Edison Dye Lifetime Achievement Award, not only for his Supercross wins and impact on the industry, but being one of the most humble guys in the sport. He even rides to this day and runs Dubya wheels. Thank you, Jeremy, for all you've contributed to the sport.